right, here we go. Episode 4, the unspoken truth about money and marriage. Welcome back, and if this is your first time, I'm Alyssa.
And I'm Matt.
And we're your hosts of the Vows, Vibes, and Virtues podcast. So before we start this episode, I want to give you a quick shout out because today is kind of special.
Why is that?
Well, it's Father's Day, babe.
Well, I appreciate that.
So we were just talking about, we've been together for about almost 13 years now, and it's wild. And I feel like I've got to see you grow substantially from when we were babies, what feels like we were babies at the time, to now almost, how long have we been married? 11, 12 years of marriage?
No, not quite 12 years. It's going to be 10 years next January.
Okay, so we've been married for 10 years. It will be 10 years come January. 2 kids later, like we've been through quite a bit of life together.
Yeah, we've definitely been through some very difficult times, some good times.
And like I was saying, it's just been nice to see you grow into the man that you are. I mean, you've come a long way. We both have come a long way, but you especially. And I think this year feels different. This Father's Day feels different for me because I feel like we're in a new season. We're in a new, like something new is happening within our marriage. Something new is happening within our family. And I think God has a huge part in that, moving us in the direction that he wants us to be in and reaching out, not just to other Christian couples or other married couples, but just touching people and spreading his words. And every day we're learning to become disciples of Jesus. And it's been incredible to see you do that.
Well, I appreciate that. I think I've seen a lot of growth in you as well. From when we first got together and through the first few years of our relationship, really up until this past year, you were still growing up, still had a lot of growing up to do. I think we both did, honestly.
For sure.
But I think in this last year, you've really dedicated yourself to being a better mother, a better wife, a better Christian, and not necessarily in that order, but I think being a better Christian and really devoting yourself to the church, to God, to your own personal walk has really benefited those other aspects into being a better wife, being a better mother, and being just a better person all around. Not that you were terrible beforehand, don't get me wrong. You were an amazing wife before, and I think you're even better now, and I really appreciate that. I know that God placed you in my life, and I was in a very dark place at the time and just happened to find you, and we carried each other for a while. And
absolutely.
I think we finally got this great opportunity that I've been wanting to do for a while, and I couldn't do it by myself. So I enlisted you into this new venture that we're venturing into, and I really hope that it gets to some people that really need to hear it and that it benefits them. And that's really my goal, regardless of if we ever make money from this podcast or anything like that. It's really to spread some words of encouragement and spread God's word to other people, to get his message out there, to help other people that are in need that may not even realize they need it, but they get to hear the message.
Well, and I think if you and I continue to just be our real, authentic selves, like we show them who Mat and Alyssa are, we're human, we have struggles, we have highs, we have lows. I think that's going to hopefully set us apart from everyone else. But I think it's so true, and I think I've told you time and time, that you and I both, we don't walk like we used to, we don't talk like we used to, and it's been night and day. Like, we are just two different people from where we started in all the best ways.
Yeah, God is really at work in our lives, and I'm really thankful for everything that he's given us.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So today's message is about finances in a marriage aspect. Finances has to be one of the toughest conversations for a married couple to have.
Yep. So I actually did some research for this episode, as I do for every episode, but I wasn't surprised to find that the top 3 reasons for divorce today are: number 1, infidelity; number 2, conflicts in marriage; but number 3, financial differences.
I gotta imagine that 2 and 3 kind of go together, because finances could be a huge conflict.
Yeah, totally. But I think there's a lack of communication, which we discussed in our second episode.
I think we've discussed it in every episode.
But it boils down truly to communication.
Yeah.
Finances, like, those are hard conversations that anybody should have prior to marriage. And if you're not talking about finances prior to marriage, you're just asking for trouble.
Yeah. And I think trust is another big aspect to financial stability in a relationship. Because if you don't trust your partner, then what are you even doing together?
Right.
And if you don't trust your partner with money, then you are really not showing that person a level of respect.
Yeah.
You're not treating them as an adult. You're not having those difficult discussions. Yes, one person is going to be ultimately in charge because in a marriage, there's two people. And we talk about equality. Equality is a big thing in today's society. And as a matter of fact, our pastor talked about it today, this morning at church, that men and women are equal. Well, yes, in a certain stance, they are equal, but in
a biblical sense,
the roles that we have, they're equal in importance. Men and women in importance are both equal. But in the role in a relationship, in a role in a marriage, the man is the leader and the woman is the helper. And I think it's a hot topic to discuss. It's not genuinely going to be a comfortable thing to talk about. However, if you look at scripture, God refers to himself as a helper. He is our helper. So it's not like being the helper in the relationship is
a derogatory term.
Or that you're worth less than the leader of the relationship. No, just the man has a role, the woman has a role. And
that was a really hard pill for me to swallow very recently because we've talked about that within our group and learning our roles biblically, right?
Yeah.
And it's been a huge kind of wake-up call for me because you and I have gone in our relationship so long where I have always felt the need to take control, and you've always let me do that because in your mind, well, I'm not going to argue with her, happy wife situation.
But at the same time, you weren't happy making those decisions.
No, if anything, I was
stressed out.
Very stressed out.
And I think it was kind of a light bulb moment for when we realized that really, I should be making the last call or the ultimate call on what we're doing with our budget because I'm the leader of the relationship. Yes, you can give me all of the ins and outs, all of the research, all of your suggestions, and
ultimately, it's your decision.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm the one that makes the call, and then I'm the one that has to live with the consequences of that call. And
good or bad.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not always going to make the right decision. But on a relationship level, there's got to be one person that's in charge and the other person has to assist the person in charge. And the way God laid out those roles is for the man to be that leader. The man is going to have to make the decision and live by those decisions, and the woman's going to have to help to the best of her ability. Now, every man is different and every woman is different, so we're not all the same. So not every relationship is going to look the same way. Right. That doesn't mean that as a man, you can't have a say in the budget or you can't help me with the finances at all because I may not be good with numbers. I may not be able to make a spreadsheet and calculate all of those things. There's going to be men like that who need their wife to step into that role.
Yeah.
So it's different. It's going to look different in every relationship. However, at the end of the day, the man should be making the decisions.
The final
the final decision. Yeah. When there is a difference between opinions, ultimately one opinion has to rule out.
Yeah. And we're working on that. And like I said, it's been a hard pill to swallow, but it has been nice because now I am not stressing over all those little things because I felt for so long I had to control it and I had to oversee it. But at the end of the day, it was just giving me anxiety. So now to have you step in and oversee things, that's your burden to carry, not mine.
Really? Yes, it is my burden to carry, but I don't get anxiety like you do.
Like I do, for sure.
I know that at the end of the day, God's going to take care of us and God's going to provide for us in one way or another. Yeah. So I've got to trust in him and he's going to follow through for us.
And we're going to get into that later in the episode about how God's going to follow through for us. But it's safe to say that money is such a huge part of our lives and in marriage, and it can be a source of great unity or significant conflict. But what does a biblical approach to money and marriage actually look like? So I kind of wanted to throw in a personal anecdote of mine and kind of take it back. I can only speak on our relationship. We've learned from our mistakes, it's safe to say. But growing up for me, and I don't know, it might have been different for you, but you know my background. And for those of you who don't, growing up, I was not personally taught the significance of saving and being financially smart with money. And that honestly ultimately led into trouble at the beginning of our marriage, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for sure. Saving money was definitely not in the mindset.
No, it wasn't. I mean, and granted, we were just barely like we were just living paycheck to paycheck. Like it was very tough at the beginning of our relationship.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard, like when you're not taught those principles about the importance of saving.
Not always having that instant gratification.
Yeah.
Don't going always. Out and buying the next thing, going to buy the name brand of things.
Yeah.
I had a little bit more of that because growing up, we didn't have a lot of money growing up. So my mom was very frugal, always shopping the ads, always using coupons, always getting the generic brand over the brand name, which I remember when we first got together, that was a big conversation
oh my
we
gosh,
had.
It was.
You hated it when I would buy
the off-brand.
Like, stuff. I would get the Great Value cleaner or the Great Value.
No. We need the Clorox bleach. No.
Yeah.
But, you know,
or I'd want to shop at Aldi and you're like, what?
Yeah, which now I love shopping at Aldi. But as we're discussing it in this very moment, I'm looking back to, you know, how when we first started dating and we were living paycheck to paycheck. Like we had no money. But did we have money? I think we did have money because we ate out all of the time.
We had no money because we didn't stick to a good budget.
Budget.
We were always out spending. And
we were drinking.
I'm just as guilty as you because we used to go out a lot and I would spend a lot of money on alcohol and I would
eating out.
A lot of money on eating out or going to the movies or doing whatever I wanted to, really.
Yeah.
Instead of paying the bills and saving something and then spending some, not
we weren't
all.
Budgeting really for our groceries.
Right.
Like we didn't have a
we
good...
would go to the store with like $20 or $40 and be like, how do we make this last date again?
Because we just spent our weekly grocery allowance at the bar last night.
Yeah, definitely do not do that.
No.
If you're listening out there, definitely do not follow suit in that. Make sure you've got money for groceries.
Make sure all your bills are paid.
Yeah.
But I think those are just life lessons, you know, that as an adult, you're going to learn the hard way. You're either going to be brought up and have values instilled in you that teach you how to save, how to budget, like all the things that we want to instill in our children, or you're not going to have that mindset and you're just going to
have to learn the hard way.
You're going to have to learn.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And we did. Thank God.
Yes.
So I think now we've gotten to a point where we've realized that finances aren't just practical means, they're truly spiritual for us now.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It seems like you go out and you work your job.
Yeah.
You make the money. It's your money.
That was the mindset.
That's always the mindset because you worked for that money. But you've got to realize all of the factors that went into that to where you are today, the job that you have, the education you got. All of those things came from somewhere. Those opportunities came from somewhere, and it's not luck.
And it's not just you.
God gave you those talents to get that job.
Yep.
God gave you those opportunities.
He opened the door to put you in this position at your job. God opens those doors for you to get that job opportunity, to make that salary.
Ultimately, what we're saying is it's God's money that he's given to you.
Yeah. And that's a relatively new realization for us. And
and as Christians, our way of acknowledging that is by giving, by tithing, by donating, especially by tithing, because that's our way of saying, yes, all of this money is from you, from God. We're going to give 10% back to you.
Yeah.
And you're going to use it however you want. And I have had many discussions about tithing over the years. I've had many people say, well, you don't know what the church is going to use it for. Mm-hmm. Well, what if they're just keeping the money? That's between them and God.
Right.
Between me and God, it's me giving that money to the church. So from my aspect, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm giving that money to him. And it is literally the only time in the Bible that God says to challenge him. When you tithe, God literally says to test him and see what he does for you when you give him.
And oh my gosh, does he follow through?
Yeah, I mean, just random things come up. Like you get random refunds from a doctor that you haven't been to in what, 5-6 years?
That literally happened, guys. About a month ago, we get a check in the mail for like a couple $100. Neither one of us were expecting it. Happens, get a phone call that they were just going through their records, cleaning up loose ends, and there was a refund that was due. We weren't expecting that money.
Yeah.
Great. There's our part of our tithing that we just basically got back. But I will tell you, like, since tithing,
I overpaid on my property taxes and got a refund from the mortgage company. I got a reward from having surgery from my insurance company. Like things you've never heard of. And it's not like overnight he's gonna make you a millionaire by donating your 10%. I mean, theoretically I guess that could happen, but it's not like, oh yeah, I made my tithe, let me go buy a lottery ticket, I'm gonna win tomorrow. But he's gonna follow through, and that money always comes when you need it. Yeah. If there is ever any doubt.
And maybe it's not even money, because I mean, I think too, we've seen between you and I just a sense of peace. Like we're at a point where we're not worrying about money anymore, and it feels really good. Like we aren't making bucos of money over here, but all of our needs are met. We have a roof over our head. We have groceries in our refrigerator. We're able to do fun activities with the kids. We can go out on our date night, and
we have cars to get us to places. Like, we have clothes that clothe us.
It's just a newfound peace that we've recently.
It's really an anxiety that's been lifted.
100%. And you know me, like I'm a very anxious, anxiety-driven person, and I don't think I've ever been more calm in my life.
Yeah. I think over the last year, it's really taken me quite a while to get to the point where I wanted to start tithing. But man, you talking about God talking to you, it seemed like every message I heard, whether it was at church or at group or on TV, I would just be hearing tithing. You need to tithe, you need to tithe, you need to give, you need to tithe, you need to give. And it was like every week I was getting hit with the same message. And finally I was like, all right, I need to do it. But 10% is a lot. 10% is scary. That's an electric.
I didn't want to do it. I was so scared.
Yeah. And finally I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. So I went, and the first bill that I paid, before I paid the first bill, honestly.
Yeah.
I logged in and I gave my tithing. And ever since then, every 2 weeks, the first thing I do when I get paid, I give my tithing.
It's a habit now for both of us.
And I'm happy about it. I want it to go to the church. I want it to go to the community to help other people. And I'm just excited to see what God does with me and our relationship, with our children, with our church, knowing that I'm in line with what His will is for us and our financial situation. I know that we'll be taken care of.
Yeah. We're experiencing it firsthand, and it feels really nice. And I told you that I was scared to start tithing. And now that I've started tithing, okay, great. We're doing that aspect of it. Well, we've had the conversations. Well, I want my money to go here. And I mean, it's still considered tithing. And you've had to instill in me and remind me that no, the tithing needs to go to the church, because Alyssa, you can't have control over the money. And that's the controlling part of my personality that wants to say, well, no, I want it to go here, but it's not my place to say where God's money goes.
Right.
And that's been really hard.
Yeah, and that comes back to who makes the final decision.
Yes.
Because even though it's your money, it comes from your job, it's your paycheck, I have the final say on what we do with it. And you, as my partner, need to listen to what I'm saying and give the money the way we're supposed to. We're not supposed
to my husband.
We're not supposed to have control over that 10%. And yeah, there's a lot of naysayers out there. There's a lot of people who think it's stupid, who think it's foolish. You're throwing money good after bad, but those people don't know. Their eyes haven't been open to it. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people in this world that when they open the Bible and they try and read it, the words don't make sense.
Well, I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there. I mean, it wasn't until last year when things finally started clicking. And I even voiced that to you. I said, Matt, I've never been able to open my Bible and actually understand and grasp the words as I'm reading them until very recently. It was gibberish beforehand.
Yeah. And that's really where that personal relationship with God comes from. You're finally awake to what He's been trying to tell you. You're finally listening to what is being said. So it's difficult. People that may be listening right now, maybe they don't have that relationship and they won't understand what we're talking about. They might think we're foolish or whatnot, but it's real.
It's real. And I hope that maybe somebody will take this episode and challenge themselves and see what God can do.
Yeah.
Maybe we can open that door.
We're praying for you.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about some common financial challenges and pitfalls in marriage. So one of the key things that people have issues with in their marriages is avoiding talks about money, assuming and being secretive. I gotta say, secretive spending has gotta be the worst type.
Yeah. I think we've had a couple of friends in that situation, and it never ends well.
Right. Especially when you're on a tight budget.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden somebody in the relationship goes out and buys some shiny new toy and hides it. And by toy, I don't mean a literal toy, but I mean, it could be, they went out and bought a new motorcycle.
Yeah.
They went and bought a gun. They went and bought, I don't know, new clothes, a new jacket, new shoes, spent several $100s on that, several $1,000s out of savings. And that can be a big fight if those weren't discussed.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with buying all the shiny new things, but you definitely have to have that discussion with your partner. And I think it kind of leads into the different money personalities. You're either a spender or you're a saver.
And I'm definitely the saver.
Definitely the spender, and I am working on also becoming a saver because
I mean, I feel guilty if I need to buy a new pair of shoes.
I know. You will literally, like, they'll sit in the Amazon cart or the Academy cart for days or weeks.
Or they won't even be in the cart. I'll just be constantly looking them up and be like, yeah, new pair of shoes would be cool, but I mean, I can only kind of see my socks in these ones. And, the laces haven't completely worn through yet.
Like, just buy the dang shoes. You need them. Oh, my gosh.
But it's like, shoes are expensive.
Shoes are very expensive. And now we have two little humans that are constantly growing. Every few months, we're buying new shoes. So, yeah.
Exactly.
They're
I don't
very
have money
expensive.
for new shoes. I have one pair of shoes, one pair of boots, some hunting boots also.
Meanwhile, I won't. Well, the old me wouldn't think twice about pulling the trigger on new shoes, and now I'm definitely being more cautious with my spending, reeling it in, clothing, and just unnecessary things.
Again, it comes back to having that conversation with your partner, and like I was saying earlier, who makes the final decision? You come to me and be like, hey, can I buy this? And I'm like, no, right now is not a good time.
Yeah.
We just purchased X. We
Yeah.
need to pay for this first. Once that's over, let's budget to get you that thing.
And it's not even like I'm not.
And it's not like a hard no, like, no, you can never have this.
Let's take care of this before we splurge on this.
Right.
And it's not every little thing, but it's more so those bigger purchases. You don't want to blindside your partner without discussing. I mean, if you want to spend, I don't know, $20, $50 here and there. I mean, that's...
And it's not like I make every decision for you.
No.
I don't tell you when you can go out to eat lunch or anything like that. Or if you want to go get a coffee at Starbucks or Dunkin' or whoever. Don't mean to offend. Yes, sometimes we drink Starbucks coffee. I'm not going to be like, you need to run every single thing by me. One, I don't got the time for that. Two, I don't care that much about coffee or eating out, as long as it's not every single day, because again, that comes back to budget and not having enough money.
It might sound silly,
but those things add
up. Oh my gosh, Starbucks, if you went for a week straight, that's a huge chunk of money just down the drain.
Yeah, I mean, what? And drinks $7
$7 now?
Yeah.
Like, it's insane. You're
Multiply
talking
that
5 days a week?
Yeah, it's $35
That's insane.
for 5 drinks. Yeah.
When I can get a bottle of cold brew at the grocery store that'll last me a week and I'll spend $10 for it. I mean, come on. We got to be smart with our finances.
Yeah.
Everything adds up.
Another huge factor in financial challenges is debt. And kind of like we were just talking about with overspending, it's a fast track to debt.
Yeah, easily.
If you rack up several big purchases and then you have a medical emergency, and then you have out of control spending, and then you just keep on going. You're eating out all the time.
Yeah.
You're making big purchases all on credit.
On credit, yeah. You start living beyond your means, and we see that so often today.
And it just creates a lot of stress because finally, at some point, your credit runs out. And now you're stuck with, a bunch of monthly payments. And yeah, you've got maybe some cool stuff, but that stuff gets old. And then what happens when, your refrigerator breaks or your washing machine breaks, and now you don't have the extra savings for that stuff. You don't have the available credit for that stuff. And it can really cause some strife if it's a singular person in the relationship that's made all of those purchases. And then the other person who is more the stable saver or the responsible party in the relationship goes, well, we need money for this, and there is no money.
Ugh, that's terrifying. Detrimental, for sure. If anyone's listening and they aren't married and you need to start with good financial habits, hopefully you guys are better off than we were when we first started, and start saving, start budgeting, and be smart. Just be smart. And there's so many resources today, for younger people that you and I necessarily maybe didn't have.
I think the first thing that anybody that has out of control spending, doesn't know where all their money goes after a paycheck, the first thing you got to do is make a budget.
100%.
And you got to stick to that budget. Literally just get out a spreadsheet on Excel and just write down every bill that you pay. Go through your bank account if you don't know. Look at last month's spending. And the thing with my bank that I bank with, it tells you what I spent money on. Like, it tells you what you spent on entertainment, what you spent on food, what you spent on bills. And you would be shocked.
Yeah.
If you're not budgeting right now, you would be shocked at what you spend on entertainment and food. And so I think that's the first thing you got to do to get a handle on your finances, is setting up a budget, see where all your money goes. And once you figure that out, when you get paid, you're going to pay bills. Make sure you know all your due dates. Put all the due dates on the spreadsheet there, how much the average is, minimum payments on credit cards, the due dates for your water bill, electric bill, rent or mortgage, whatever you've got. Put all of that along with the due dates, group it together amongst your paychecks so you know when you're going to get paid and which bills you can pay on that paycheck.
And your savings. Don't forget to budget your savings.
And budget your saving, and preferably your tithing. Make sure you're calculating your tithing into there.
And I know the Bible talks about 10%, but if you're not tithing, just even starting small.
Just start with something.
What's that?
Start with 1%. Start with $5.
Just make a habit. Start the habit.
Start the habit. Slowly increase it up. Because just like with anything in life, with working out, with eating healthy, once you make a habit out of something, it's so much easier to continue with it. So start the budget, stick to it.
Stop going to Starbucks and start tithing.
Yeah, literally, you could stop eating out and spending all of the time, and that money that you're saving from that, a portion of it could go to tithing. Yeah. Literally, that could be your tithing. And then as long as you're giving freely and happily to the church, you will reap those rewards. I promise. Liable for that, but I promise. Totally. I'm just kidding. No, God will definitely fall through for you.
So we talked about briefly disagreeing on spending priorities, experiences versus possessions, savings versus spending.
Once you've created that budget, don't just create a budget that you don't talk to your partner about. Make sure that this is a discussion that you have with your partner, because you want them involved. Because if you're the saver and you create a budget that you've not discussed with the spender in the relationship, that budget is doomed to fail. You need to sit down, discuss it together, write everything down from both aspects, get everybody's opinion on it, and talk about it, pray about it, and go from there. Because if you do not share in your financial goals, and also you may be right now in an apartment and not able to afford a house. If you want to one day afford a house, you're going to have to prioritize your budget and prioritize spending. And in order to do that, you have to quit spending. You've got to have that difficult conversation. You've got to sit down and make those difficult choices. And maybe it's the man in the relationship as the spender and the wife as the saver. Well, in order to help your husband, you need to have that difficult discussion. Because if you're not capable of having that discussion, then what kind of marriage are you in? Yeah. If you can't hold your partner accountable, then who is?
And if your partner isn't receiving that information and understanding, and you aren't on the same page with your finances, then you've got bigger problems ahead. And I hate to say that, but these are conversations that should be had before marriage even comes up.
Yeah. And then once you've got your budget together, the next thing you want to do is set some financial goals for the future.
Well, for us, it was buying our first home.
Right. That was more of our long-term goal. But set some short-term goals. Set aside money for emergencies.
Yeah.
Set aside money for your next vacation.
Yeah.
Instead of putting your next vacation on credit, save up a couple grand for that trip. Midterm, paying off some debt. Your car, loan, credit cards, those things take time to pay off. So make that a short-term goal or a midterm goal to get to a point where you're debt-free.
And just tackle it together. I mean, doing it together as a unified front is amazing, and help encourage one each other. Help, like you mentioned, keep each other accountable.
Right. And then some long-term goals, buying a house, having money for retirement, if we make it to there. I know it's an ongoing joke of the millennial generation. Our retirement plan is dying early.
We're constantly.
That's not a good retirement plan, bro. Yeah. Gotta save some money for retirement.
So now that we've tackled all of those topics, I also want to make sure that we touch on practicing that generosity. So we talked about the tithing aspect, but we want to go beyond the tithing. Intentional giving, spontaneous acts of kindness, experiencing the joy of giving as a couple. And I feel like I really don't have a problem in that area, or we don't have a problem in that area, because I think our heart, our nature is to give wherever we can. I'm constantly like, oh, we should do this. Let's do this. And it fuels our souls, you and I. So I encourage everyone to go above the tithing and just show that act of kindness wherever you can find it.
Yeah. And if you're one of those people that, circling back to the debt, you don't know where to start, there are several different methods that you can look up outside of this podcast, but one of them is called the snowball, and it's a very famous method for paying down debt. You start with the smallest bill, you pay all your minimums first, and then you start with the smallest bill, and you add more money to that above the minimum until you pay that small debt off. Then you take that money that you were paying to that small debt, you add it to the next smallest. And then once you pay that one off, you keep going, and that snowballs the debt down until you're finally paid off. The avalanche method is another one. This one requires paying the bigger debts or the higher interest rate first. So whatever has the highest interest rate, you pay that one down first. And then the next lowest, and the next lowest. So it's an avalanche as it falls down to the bottom. They both work. I've always gone the snowball route just because it makes more sense to me. And avalanche just seems more complicated. But I like having those short, immediate goals of, I paid off a debt. Avalanche might take some more time, especially on those bigger goals, those bigger loans and stuff, to get them paid off. So my method is the snowball, but both of them work for sure. You can seek counsel. If the debt is overwhelming, you can talk to a lawyer, you can talk to your creditors, you can talk to a bunch of different people. You can find a counselor, reaching out to friends and family if you need help figuring out what to do, reaching out to your church community. That's another important reason to be plugged into a church, because the church is your family and they will help you get connected to the right resources. I'm not saying they're going to pay off your debt, but they will point you in the right direction to get you financially stable. And
then I think aligning yourself with your community and having those same goals is also huge, because when you surround yourself with like-minded people, you start moving in a more positive direction financially, spiritually, like all of those aspects align. All right. Thank you for joining us on the Vows, Vibes, and Virtues podcast today. We hope that this episode has shined some light on your finances and your marriages. And I cannot wait to talk with you guys next week, as we have a very special episode with our very first guest appearance next week. I'm very excited because they're close personal friends of ours, so please tune into that. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, please like, subscribe, and leave a review and share it with a friend. Come on, guys, help us grow. If you guys have any prayer requests or suggestions, please leave us a comment or reach out to us personally via email down below. And we'll see you next time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.